Hello viewer, welcome to today's lesson. I am Edward Asante Ekufu, your presenter. In this lesson, we'll be focusing on safety precautions in the science laboratory. There is a great saying which states that those who work the safest way live to see another day. To what extent do you agree with this statement? This statement is essential to the activities that occur in the laboratory. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to 1. Identify the hazards and the safety symbols associated with the chemicals. 2. State the basic safety rules in the laboratory. Now let's focus on safety precautions in the science laboratory. The study of science involves exploration, invention, and investigation. Most of these activities are often carried out in the laboratory. The laboratory is a room equipped for scientific experiments or for testing and analysis. In addition to the apparatus and procedures, the chemicals used for these investigations have various forms of hazards related with them. A hazard is something or circumstance that has the potential to cause an accident. If these chemicals are not used, stored, and handled properly, they can cause injury, illness, diseases, fire, and explosion. It is essential to know these hazards and the precautions needed to handle them. The hazards associated with the chemicals in the laboratory include, first of all, you're looking at corrosive substances. Corrosive substances. They are materials that, upon contact, destroy tissues and metal surfaces. Examples of such substances are concentrated acids and bases. They are identified with a label on their bottles bearing the warning sign. Now we move on to flammable substances. These substances produce vapor that can catch fire easily. Such substances could not be placed near a source of ignition. This is why lighted cigarettes, mobile phones are not allowed near petrol pumps. Examples of flammable substances are petrol, acetone, LPG, and ethanol. And their warning sign is. Now let's look at toxic or poisonous substances. These are substances that can cause death or malfunction of living systems when injected, inhaled, swallowed, or absorbed through the skin. Solids such as lead, sodium cyanide, cadmium are examples. Other examples are pesticides, mercury, and carbon 2 oxide. And they have a warning sign of. Now let's look at oxidizing substances. They are also called oxidants. They supply oxygen to organic materials to burn it fiercely. These substances should not be stored near flammable substances to avoid setting off fire. Examples are organic peroxides, potassium permanganate, trioxonitrate 5 acid, and bleach. They have the warning sign of. Now let's look at irritants. They are materials that can cause inflammation of the skin. Inflammation is a condition of the body when it is reacting to injury of a tissue. The symptoms include reddening or blistering of the skin or swelling. The reagent bottles of irritants have the following hazard symbol. Now let's look at biohazards. They are biological agents or conditions that can cause disease in humans or harm the environment. Examples are bacteria, virus, and other microbes. They have the warning symbols. Now let's move on to radioactive substances. These are materials that decay, giving off harmful or ionizing radiation that can cause cancer. Examples are uranium, polonium, and radon. Their warning symbol is. Now let's move on to non-chemical hazards. The first being electrical hazards. Electrical injuries usually caused by the passage of electric current through the human body. It usually occurs around electrical fixtures, electrical outlets that are overloaded, faulty electrical equipment, exposed wires, using electric tools in wet conditions, especially when the equipment is not properly grounded. Now let's move to the second one, broken glasses and sharp objects. Sharpening implements such as knives used in school farms, scissors used for dissecting in biology laboratory, optical pins used in physics, and broken glasses in the chemistry laboratory can cause injury. Wet floors. Slippery floors have reduced friction and they serve as a hazard because it can cause accidents. Now let's move on to the rules and regulations observed in the lab. Safety in the laboratory is important in preventing accidents, fire or explosion or diseases. To ensure safe, secure and healthy environment for you, your teacher and other students to carry out investigations, basic safety laboratory rules and procedures must be adhered to. And these are general laboratory rules. First of all, do not eat or drink or chew pens in the laboratory to avoid food or drink being contaminated with toxic substances. 2. Do not taste any chemical in the laboratory unless you are told to do so by your teacher. It could contain toxic or corrosive substances. 3. Do not open a gas tap before lighting a match. The gas might leak into the surrounding air around you and after lighting the match, get you inflamed. 4. When heating the content of a test tube, direct the mouth of the test tube away from yourself and from others. 5. Never smell any gas evolved directly with your nose close to the mouth of the test tube. The gas may be toxic, harmful, or irritant to the body. Always add concentrated acid to water. Never water to the concentrated acid to avoid splashes and heat. 7. No pets are allowed in the laboratory. 8. Never, under any circumstance, remove media or microbial culture from the laboratory. 9. Cultures or chemicals should not be mouth pipetted. A pipette filler should be attached to the pipette. If you accidentally spill materials containing live microorganisms, pour disinfectant on the spill and inform your teacher. Now let's move on to personal safety. 1. Always wear eye goggles in the laboratory when heating something or using hazardous chemicals. 2. Wear aprons or lab coats when performing experiments. 3. Long hair should be tied back so that it does not catch fire in a Bunsen burner or fall in a corrosive liquid. 4. Wear gloves when handling chemicals, especially toxic materials or corrosive substances. Now let's look at equipment. Conduct all experiments that produce airborne contaminants in a fume hood. 2. Maintain and check all safety equipment regularly. 3. Safety wash and eye wash must be provided in the laboratory. 4. Agricultural tools should be washed after use and the metal parts oiled. 5. All glassware must be cleaned and stored properly after use. 6. Do not use electric tools in a wet condition. 7. Switch tools off before connecting them to a power supply. 8. Do not plug several power cords in one outlet. 9. Always pull the plug and not the cord to avoid wear and eventually a shock. Now let's look at chemicals. 1. Store chemicals in stock rooms, not in the laboratory. That is a place made for chemicals, not in the lab. 2. Chemicals should not be stored alphabetically. Now let's look at disposal. 1. Broken glasses should be disposed of in a dedicated container. 2. Follow disposal plans for chemical prescribed by the school. Now let us end today's lesson by looking at a summary of what you've looked at so far. 1. We looked at science laboratory as a room equipped for scientific experiments. We also looked at hazards associated with chemicals in the scientific laboratories, including corrosive substances, inflammable substances, toxic materials, oxidants, irritants, radioactive substances, and biohazards. We also looked at non-chemical hazards, including waste or broken glasses, sharp objects and needles, faulty electrical equipment, and exposed wires and wet floors. We also looked at the basic laboratory rules and procedures to be followed when using the laboratory. 5. When using the laboratory, failure to observe the basic rules could result in accidents. All too soon, our time is up. Before you sign out, please do well to answer the subsequent questions. And on that note, I will see you some other time. Have a nice day.